So I was getting pictures of it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Charlie Osceola. I'm the owner of Big Cypress Martial Arts. It was currently a martial arts training place where only Seminoles went to. And Andrew there, who's playing the soldier today, he acted as one of the coaches. So all these guys have been working together for many years. Andrew himself has been learning martial arts since he was 5 years old. Everyone else has been learning over a decade of martial arts. And we started this program because we wanted to kind of give you more of an inside look of the reenactments and the battles that you see. Whenever you see the large reenactments, you know, it's amazing and there's a lot of people doing many things in it. But we wanted to go ahead and strip away most of that and just give you a quick look at the nucleus of the entire battle. And try to demonstrate why most of the ground battles did go in the favor of the Seminole during the Seminole Wars. And that is because the Seminole fought using guerrilla tactics. And the soldiers still fought the way they were taught by the Queen Army. They were still line firing, they were still doing, basically line firing. One of the most interesting aspects of this is that the roads that you see here at the fort, the pathways back here, are the original pathways that led into this fort. So these pathways are the ones that Wiley Thompson himself and his men were assassinated by the Seminole out here in these woods. This is all the exact same place. Everything you see here was here. In fact, I'd like to mention that everyone up here and every Seminole tribal member that you see here in Florida, like myself, are direct descendants of people who fought in the Seminole War. That is the whole idea of the Seminole tribe today, and the unconquered Seminole, that's what that means. We are still here, our bloodline is still here, because our ancestors fought. When I say ancestors, I don't mean 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. I mean a little over 160 years ago. I'm talking, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, her great-grandmother, her great-grandmother, all had, 5 grandmothers? She was part of the Seminole War. So everyone up here, is connected to it directly by our family. Now, Andrew has an interesting history. He is, where did you go? To the Citadel? Yeah, he went to the military academy. And now he is I get the two mixed up, psychologist or psychiatrist? Psychologist. So his hobby is psychology, but he plays a U.S. soldier every day of his life. But anyways. What we like to demonstrate right now is the Seminole at the time of the Second Seminole War, which is where this takes place, had already been part of many battles. A lot of the Seminoles who were here were already here and migrated down in the 1700s, at the beginning of the 1700s. Then there was a large migration of Cherokee, Choctaw, and a few others that were escaping Andrew Jackson around 1812, I believe it was. So they all migrated down here. And those people eventually took up arms with the Seminole and decided to become Seminole during that time when they found out that Andrew Jackson was the president and then enacted the Indian Removal Act. Another thing people don't realize is that the soldiers and Seminoles actually kind of lived together. They hung out, they knew each other. Literally weeks before the outbreak of the Second Seminole War, the Seminoles would come into the camp and they would trade with the soldiers and they would talk and they would buy powder, food, they would trade with them, they would hang out, they would talk. It was just like a community where everyone knew each other. That was literally 2 weeks before this event that we're going to reenact today. So it's a very interesting history. Now, speaking of how long those guys have been in battle, when the Seminole heard that Andrew Jackson was fixing to be president, they had already knew what was going to happen. because he did not have a favorable opinion of the Indians that he fought in the north, and he knew a lot of them came down to Florida. So when that happened, the Seminole started to buy powder and lead. They started to train their people. In fact, it was they had a few spies that the military had entered into the community. They were called, they were Cherokees that they hired would come down to the community and they would wander around. So they were Cherokee spies. There's a famous thing like the muster rolls or muster sheets, and it has a huge list of Cherokee spies that the soldiers or the army paid to look after the Seminole. And what they reported back is that the Seminole at this time were buying lead, powder, and training men. And so that's when kind of Wiley Thompson was like, hey, we need to start, getting this treaty going, otherwise something's going to happen. Also, he was a new agent at the time, appointed by Andrew Jackson, and he was charged with removing them at any cost. Of course, he tried the original way, which is let's sign a treaty. That is where Osceola famously denied the treaty, even though his chief was sitting at the table. And Osceola, a lot of people say he was a war chief or a chief. He was not a chief. A chief was a hereditary person, kind of like a king. You had to be a hereditary chief. He was just a man of the people who wanted to fight on behalf of the people, and the people liked him. And they put him up on their shoulders. So he had a lot of power and a lot of sway. So he ended up at that meeting, and it was his voice that was heard when he said, we're not going to surrender. He was arrested. Wiley Thompson put him in chains. Wiley Thompson released him. And to make up for it, Wiley Thompson gave him a rifle and said, hey, no hard feelings. Well, 2 weeks later, Osceola killed him with that rifle, left him in the woods. Parker is going to step forward. Actually, Parker, hang back for 1 second. We're going to show Madison. Madison, please step forward. Quentin, if you could. Madison is the age of a typical Seminole girl. And even though they weren't formally trained, they had more training than most people in the community. And the reason for this is because of their chores. The women did the daily chores. They did everything. They went to gather water. They went to gather, the fruits, the wood. They did everything. The men hunted. They protected the place. They brought the kill back. It was up to the young women to, prepare everything for dinner. This was every day. In fact, my grandfather told me that when he was younger and he was living in a camp near, probably about 2 miles away from somewhere over here on the west coast, he said that the women got up every morning and they made a little train of women that would walk 2 miles to gather buckets of water and carry it back every morning to the camp. That's the type of physical training that they had. They were very strong. Though they were very slight, they were very, very strong, and they could handle themselves. But eventually, some of the girls were trained, and this is kind of how it looked. Now, traditionally, we have a game called stickball, which has the men hold 2 sticks in their hands, pretty much like lacrosse, only instead of 1 stick, it's 2 sticks. And in this game, actually, the women are not allowed to carry the sticks. In fact, it's for ceremonial purpose, so they're not even allowed to touch them, except during gameplay. And during gameplay, the women were allowed to use their hands. All right, guys, that's good. I think they know you can handle yourself. That was Madison, everybody. And Clinton. So some people always ask if women were in the war. There is proof that they were in the war. We'll get to that later. Right now, Parker is going to step forward. This is Parker. I say hello, Parker.
Hi, Parker.
He really enjoys this. He wanted to come out and show you guys what he can do. Now, with any tribe, it was all hands on deck. Everyone had to handle themselves. Everyone had to put in, especially during wartime. During wartime, they went pretty young to recruit young men, but not as young as Parker. But they still trained them. His uncle or his father or his grandfather had already fought against the U.S. Army decades before. So they knew what to expect when the soldiers would come down. So they would train them how to fight against a bayonet, against sabers. These kids learned a lot, and they were expected to protect the family if they could, even at that age. All right, guys, let's show them a quick one. Nice.
Oh.
Nice, thank you. Parker himself has been training with weapons for a little bit. I feel the need that all these kids have gained a lot from, well, they're not kids anymore, but when they were, they benefited a lot from training and weapons training and chores. Anyone here with kids, there's a value to doing chores. They made the kids stronger. They made them more resilient. They gave them a sense of purpose and responsibility. And I think a lot of people still need that today. Not just to say, oh, you should do your chores, but it made you stronger. If you had to go out and work in the yard every day, you got stronger physically. Just from being in the sun, the stress of it built your body up. And you don't have to necessarily go work out every day. You can just go outside and, clean up your yard and put on some muscle. All right, what we're going to show you now is Andrew. Andrew, please step forward. Andrew is the age and the size of a typical soldier during the Second Seminole War. A lot of them were immigrants who came down from the north. They had never seen a Seminole or a Native in their life, except probably on the way down, or the scary stories that the soldiers would tell about the savages that they were going to face. And a lot of these people did come from a European country, so they weren't even farmers. They were pretty much subjects of some kind of, either monarchy or some sort of leadership. And here they are being sent into battle to fight a people who have been living in these woods for over 200 years. That's not very good odds. Again, what I like to say is that the purpose of this show isn't to rewrite any specific history or event, but it is to explain why the ground battles probably went into the favor of the Seminole. And one of the reasons is Andrew would have been a new guy coming in, and when he got to the camp here at Fort King, the guys who had been here already for years, or however long their tour was, would have told him, you see the belts on his body, they said, you need to let that tarnish, you need to let that get dirty. Also, the big metal, what is it? I think a big button right there in the center that has the insignia of the U.S. They also told him to let that tarnish, or if you can, don't wear it on outings, because the Seminole can see it across the plain. If you notice, his uniform isn't made for Florida. It's cotton, very hot. Even now, as cold as it is, he's probably going to be sweating by the end of this. Also, his shoes, which are traditional shoes today, but we had the original shoes for him to wear. When we would practice these moves, he literally could not perform a single move without slipping. They had no traction. It was just a chunk of leather on his feet. So the soldiers were at a very big disadvantage based on the clothes that they were given and what they were expected to do with the tools they got. All right. Speaking of tools, he's going to show you his rifle bayonet combination. This is what he had to fight the Seminole. This rifle was commissioned by the Army, I believe in 1815, and they had finally filled the order around the 1830s. So when the soldiers went into battle, they were using a rifle that was 15 years old. The Seminole had already had a nice relationship with Spain, and they were, again, trading furs, doing whatever they could, and to maximize profit, they would buy weapons from Spain, and Spain would bring them very nice weapons, and the Seminole actually had way more modern weapons than the soldiers. This weapon, once fired, becomes a paperweight, so they fitted it with a bayonet, which makes it a spear. Very dangerous. But the soldiers were only taught a few things. Pretty much thrusting and slashing was all they had. The Army, at the time, did not have any mechanism in place for training. There was no such thing as basic training. The soldiers were sent down, put in a fort, and what they learned there is what they learned, but they all didn't learn it together. There wasn't, a boot camp. I think there was a general famously that started it and said, hey, they all need to be trained similarly. But that wasn't in this war. All right. Quentin is going to come forward. Quentin is your typical Seminole male. Now, very big guy, but this was actually the size difference. As I said, the soldiers were small. They probably weighed about 130 on a good day, and they were probably 5'5", 5'10". A soldier at the time was 5'10" to 6 feet, or a Seminole, excuse me. So this is considered large and imposing. They were actually quite afraid of them, and Seminoles were considered very large. Also, Seminoles, apart from training, would have learned wrestling when they were young. Also, soldiers had a good history in wrestling. In fact, Northerners who would come down to the South always commented, and you can look this up, that they would always see street fights between Southerners because that's how they handled their business. So they were always wrestling with each other to see who would win. That was just the culture back then. So you're going to see a pretty interesting battle matchup. All right, guys.
Ooh.
Thank you. That was Tacoma, and that was Andrew. Excuse me. That was Clinton. We have a guy that's missing today, unfortunately, and I get them mixed up because of the Q's in their name. All right, the next thing we're going to show you is knife fighting. Now, what you saw in this battle is once it got down to the final part, the Seminole pulled a knife. One thing you should all know is that a knife to a Seminole is like its third hand. Remember that. They were raised with it. They were given it when they were young. It's what they used to protect their family. It's what they used to clothe their family. It's what they used to feed their family. So they're always going to have one. As I said before, they lived in harmony. Well, as much harmony as could be gotten back then. So weeks before the Civil War, there was, a good friendship. And actually, this was a thing. They knew each other, they hung out, but once war broke out, it turned into a different type of friendship, or at least relationship. And it would have looked something like this. Nice, thank you. That was Jason Mellon, ladies and gentlemen. And again, Andrew. We like to refer to Andrew as Captain America because he will be portraying the entire U.S. Army fighting on the Seminole tribe during this entire event. If everybody fell once, he fell 60 times. So, all right. And the interesting thing about that exchange is that when the Seminoles did go into battle, they didn't have any clothes on. When it was a planned attack, they would take their shirts off, they would go in with a loincloth. And the reason for this is because if you fight against a person with no clothing, you have no advantage. You can't grab them, you can't hold them. The soldiers had hooks and belts and chains, made them very susceptible to hand-to-hand fighting against anyone, who didn't have a shirt on. All right, the next thing we're going to show you is we're going to show you a little bit of rifle fighting. Again, we talked about the bayonet. Now, the Seminole, as I said, had a relationship with Spain, and they brought many weapons from Spain, and there was a Spanish rifle that the Spanish had traded with the Seminole, and it was actually a rifle and not just a name. It had, the bore, and it had the lines in it that made the projectile shoot further, and it was a breech loader, which means it opened from the back. It could be loaded very quickly. So while the soldier was probably on his second shot, loading from the front muzzle. When they would plan an attack, the Seminoles are very aware of foreign material in their wounds. So again, if it was a gunfight or if it was hand-to-hand, they would take their shirts off and they would go in because they didn't want to get any clothing in their wounds, because disease was a very big thing. In fact, a lot. Almost half of the deaths that happened to the soldier side was not necessarily in the battlefield, but after, when they couldn't recover from the wounds that they got during the battle. Now, his rifle is very long, and Quentin has a very short rifle. If you're ever taking a walk in these woods, you know there's not a lot of room to move around. So if these two were in these thickets of woods trying to fight each other, I don't think the soldier's going to fare well. All right, guys. Nice, thank you. All right, and we're going to show you another one. I think. All right, here's another quick volley or matchup. This is Jason Melton. All right, guys. Boom. Nice. Thank you. Woo. All right, now the purpose of that again is the most dangerous part of the bayonet rifle combination the soldier has. Though it looks very dangerous, the only sharp part of the bayonet was the very tip, millimeters. So if you can get past that, you got the soldier. You got him pinned down. Again, unless he knew any kind of special training that he brought with him to the battle, he was not taught formally how to fight. All right, the next thing we're going to show you is the knife and tomahawk combination. Now, when you think of a warrior or a brave, you think of a native with a knife and tomahawk, and there's a reason for this. This combination is what led to more deaths during the Seminole War or any battle between soldiers and natives. And the reason is because those are rusty blades he's carrying, and there was zero medicine back then, and the soldiers had succumbed months later with some sort of fever or some sort of disease if you could get a significant cut. So it was something they were very afraid of, and they tried their hardest to stay away. But as I said, one favorite thing of the soldier or the Seminoles was to goad the soldiers into firing every round that they had so that the Seminole could go in with their hand weapons and clean up. This happened many times. It happened at Dade Massacre. It happened at a few other battles. It was their favorite thing to do, was to get the soldiers to fire every round they had, and then they would go in and finish the job. All right, guys. Now, the thing about these moves, they're going to be very quick. We did not want to show, a long, lengthy battle where they're, knife fighting for 5 minutes. That's unrealistic. In a real battle, like a large reenactment or the big battlefield, you had to get your object out of the way and move to the next, or you run the risk of being hit yourself. So it was very busy. They had to do finite moves, get the object out of the way. Nice. We got a few more. And one to grow on. All right? It was definitely not a nice war. If you read deeper into the battles, you'll find that there was a lot of very, very violent things that happened during these battles on both sides. But, the Seminole were definitely not shy or do stray away from what they had to do to survive and stay in their homelands. All right, guys. Thank you. Awesome, thank you. That was Jason Melton, ladies and gentlemen. And again, give a round of applause for Andrew Wallen, who's playing our soldier today. He really enjoys his job, which he does. We tried to add a few things where he would probably come out on top, and he even said it. He said, no, this is I'm happy to do it. This is specifically, you know, showing the part that most people don't see, and he's very proud to be a part of it, and, you know, help us, show you our culture, at least from the fighting standpoint, which a lot of people don't get to see. As I said, everyone up here, descendant or bloodline, goes right to the Seminole War. So what you're seeing is pretty much what you would have been seeing. Even the same wardrobe problems that Andrew is having, those are the same problems they had fighting back then. All right, now this is where it gets a little serious, but still fun. Here we go. As I said before, there were women that fought in the Seminole War. There is a question, but there's a guy called Samuel George Morton, and he was a collector of specimen. I say that very, you know, you guys should know what I'm talking about. The adults. So he collected specimen. In his collections, he had over 800 specimen. I think half of those were Seminole. And what happened is the United States Army decided that they needed to study the Seminole, so they charged the soldiers to go out and collect these specimens. In his collection, he had two particular ones. One was called Seminole Woman of Rank, which means she was seen commanding on the field other Seminole, and Seminole Warrior of Florida Woman, which again means that she was collected on the field, seen fighting. What the women did, they probably didn't fight necessarily on the front lines, but they were there. As I said before, when the Seminoles would fight, they would you know, strip down their clothing, get in trees, and they would have a planned amount of volleys they were going to do. 5 shots, 6 shots, whatever. So they would put these shots in their mouth, hide the trees, fight. If the firefight went on longer than it was supposed to, these women were expected to run either more powder or more lead to the front lines, and on occasion, they would meet a soldier who was either trying to flank or get behind them. And they would have had to have been able to handle themselves, and this is how they would have done it. It was Alyssa Osceola and Charlie Osceola. And again, Andrew Wallen. Everything you see here, again, is just meant to show a little bit about what these wars were about. You know, we're fixing to do a big reenactment today. You're going to see the larger battle. You're going to see the gunfire. You're going to see all that stuff. But again, think about this. Once the bullets stopped flying, they had to face each other. And this is usually the outcome. And again, it was a bad thing on all sides. You know, I don't do this to mock the soldiers. I don't do this to mock anyone who died. But it's really to show how the need to gain this land from the Seminole, for whatever reason, the soldiers were sent to a very bad place under very bad conditions and expected to do a job that they were unprepared for. And it wasn't their fault. It was the fault of the powers that be needing to do whatever they needed to get what they wanted. So remember that lesson. All right, guys, that concludes our show. We hope you enjoyed it. On the end, we have Andrew Wallen. Woo! Jason Milton, Alyssa Osceola, and Charlie Osceola. And I think if we have time, if you want to come down here and get a picture with some of these guys, you can do that right now. Thank you very much. And I think we'll be here tomorrow at the same time if you'd like to see the show.
Airdrop it to you.
Thank you.
Okay, I got